My hands trembled as the prison gates slammed shut behind me. The echo of the metal felt like thunder in my head, each clang mocking me with the reminder that I didn't belong there. 11 months, that was the sentence. 11 months for a crime I didn't commit. And the man who put me here was the one I least expected. My boss's husband. I replayed his words in my head, that smug look on his face when he stood in court and pointed at me. She betrayed my trust, she stole, she lied. But none of that was true. I hadn't betrayed anyone. If anything, I had been the one betrayed. Betrayed by my own heart. Betrayed by desire. I thought I was strong enough to resist him. Strong enough to walk away from his sweet promises and tempting whispers. But I wasn't. And now I was paying the price, locked behind cold iron bars. The worst part? My boss, his wife, looked me in the eye on that day in court, tears streaming down her cheeks, and said, "I trusted you like a sister." She didn't know the truth. She didn't know it was her own husband who had lured me in, who had trapped me, who had framed me when I tried to break free. She saw me as the betrayer. And maybe in a way I was. I pressed my back against the wall of the prison cell, swallowing the bitter taste of regret. How did my life, once so full of promise, collapse into this? How did I go from being a loyal secretary loved by my boss, to a prisoner shamed by the world? I closed my eyes and let the memories drag me back to the beginning, to the day it all started, the day my life took the first dangerous turn. It was a bright Monday morning when I walked into the office building, my heels clicking against the tiled floor. I had worked at the company for almost 2 years, and I loved my job. My boss, Mrs. Claire Williams, was not just a boss to me. She was a mentor, a mother figure, and sometimes a friend. She trusted me with everything. Her schedules, her secrets, her life. She was beautiful, elegant, and powerful, yet so kind-hearted. She had built the company from nothing and treated everyone like family. I admired her deeply. She was the woman I wanted to become someday. But the moment her husband entered the picture, everything began to change. I met him for the first time at a company dinner. Mr. Richard Williams was tall, charming, and had a smile that could melt stone. He wasn't like most rich men I had seen. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that drew people to him. That night, when he shook my hand and held my gaze for a second too long, something inside me shifted. I pushed it aside, thinking it was nothing. But little did I know, that tiny spark would grow into a fire that would burn my entire world down. First, it was innocent. He would stop by the office sometimes, bringing lunch for his wife. He'd make small jokes, asking me about my day. I always tried to keep things professional, but I couldn't ignore the way his eyes lingered on me when no one was watching. One afternoon, while Mrs. Williams was in a meeting, he came into the office. I was typing away on my computer when I felt his presence behind me. "You work too hard," he said softly. I laughed nervously, brushing off the compliment. But then he placed his hand lightly on my shoulder. I froze. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong. But something about the warmth of his touch sent shivers down my spine. From that day, the boundaries started to blur. He would find excuses to talk to me, to stand too close, to make me laugh. And slowly, against my better judgment, I found myself drawn to him. I tried to resist. I told myself it was betrayal, not just of my boss but of myself. But desire has a way of clouding reason, and I was only human. One evening, after a late office shift, he offered me a ride home. I should have said no, but I didn't. That night changed everything. He confessed that he felt trapped in his marriage, that his wife didn't give him the attention he needed. He said I was different, that I understood him. I wanted to believe he was lying, but part of me wanted so badly to be seen, to be desired. And so I let myself fall. For weeks, we kept it secret. Stolen glances in the office, late-night messages, whispers in corners. My heart raced every time we met. But with every stolen moment, guilt gnawed at me. I loved Mrs. Williams too much to hurt her. Yet I couldn't pull away from her husband's hold. But betrayal has a way of demanding payment. And mine came sooner than I expected. It started with whispers in the office. People looking at me differently, rumors I couldn't explain. Then one day, Mrs. Williams confronted me with a coldness I had never seen before. "Are you hiding something from me?" she asked. I shook my head, terrified. But deep inside, I knew the truth was dangerously close to the surface. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, everything exploded. One morning, the police walked into the office and arrested me in front of everyone. The charge? Fraud. Embezzling money from the company. I couldn't believe it. I screamed my innocence, begged them to check again. But the evidence was stacked against me. Bank transfers in my name, documents signed with my handwriting, records that pointed to me as the thief. I knew instantly who was behind it. Richard. He had used me, then discarded me like trash. When I tried to call him, he never answered. When I looked for him in court, he avoided my eyes. And Mrs. Williams? She cried, broken by the betrayal she thought I had dealt her. As the judge read my sentence, 11 months in prison, I felt my world crumble. I wasn't just losing my freedom. I was losing the trust of the only person who had ever believed in me. And that was how I ended up here, behind these cold walls, haunted by my own choices, and burning with one question that refused to leave me. Why did Richard frame me? But before I could sink into despair, something happened in the prison yard that jolted me back to life. As I sat alone, a woman approached me. Her face was scarred, her eyes sharp with secrets. She leaned close and whispered, "I know why you're here, and I know the truth about Richard." My breath caught. Could it be possible? Could someone out there hold the key to clearing my name? But before she could say more, the prison alarm blared, and guards rushed in, scattering everyone. I lost sight of her in the chaos, and I was left standing, heart racing, with only her words echoing in my mind. I know the truth about Richard. The sirens screamed through the prison yard, loud enough to rattle my bones. Guards rushed everywhere, barking orders as if a riot had broken out. Women scrambled, some ducking, others pressing against the walls. And in the chaos, I lost her, the scarred woman who whispered those haunting words to me. I know the truth about Richard. My heart beat like a drum inside my chest. Who was she? What did she know? And why had she chosen to tell me, of all people? I tried to push my way through the crowd to find her again, but a guard shoved me back with a baton. "Stay in line," he snapped. The whistle blew, and just like that, the moment was gone. The women were herded back to their cells, and I was forced into mine, my head buzzing with questions. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay on the hard bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. Richard framed me. I knew that much. But how could she possibly know about it? Unless she had some connection to him. I turned on my side, clutching my blanket tightly. Maybe she had been one of his victims too. Maybe Richard wasn't the man I thought he was. Maybe I wasn't the first woman he had betrayed. The thought made my stomach twist. By morning, I was determined to find her. Breakfast was served, watery porridge and a stale piece of bread, but I barely touched it. My eyes scanned the cafeteria, searching for the scarred woman. Rows of prisoners sat at the metal tables, some laughing, some whispering, others eating in silence. And then I saw her at the far corner, her face half hidden under the shadow of her hooded jacket. I stood up, my tray shaking in my hands, and made my way toward her. But just as I was about to reach her table, another inmate stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "Stay away from her," the inmate said, her voice low and firm. She was taller than me, with broad shoulders and eyes that dared me to argue. "Why?" I whispered. "Because you don't know who you're dealing with," she said. "That woman brings trouble. If you're smart, you'll keep your distance." She shoved past me and walked away, leaving me frozen in place. My curiosity burned hotter. If she was so dangerous, then why had she chosen to speak to me? Later that day, while we were allowed outside again, I finally caught her alone. She sat under the shade of a tree, picking at the dirt with a stick. My heart thudded as I walked over. "You said you know the truth about Richard," I blurted, my voice trembling. She looked up slowly, her eyes piercing into mine. The scar across her cheek made her look even more intimidating. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then she smirked. "So, you are the little secretary he sacrificed." My breath hitched. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice so no one else could hear. "Richard has a habit. You're not the first. You won't be the last." The ground beneath me seemed to tilt. My stomach knotted as her words sank in. You know him? I asked. Know him? She laughed bitterly. I loved him. Once. Before he betrayed me too. My heart stopped. Could it be true? Was she another victim of Richard's lies? I was where you are, she continued. He promised me everything. Said he would leave his wife, said he would take care of me. But when I became a threat, he destroyed me. Just like he's destroying you. I felt my knees weaken. But how do you know about my case? She looked around, her eyes scanning the guards, then leaned even closer. Because I helped him frame you. Her words sliced through me like a knife. I stumbled back, shaking my head. You what? Her smirk vanished. Don't look so shocked. I was desperate. He promised me freedom if I helped him set you up. But he lied again. I ended up here, same as you. Betrayed. Forgotten. My chest tightened, my mind spinning. This couldn't be real. She couldn't be telling the truth. But her eyes, there was no mistaking the bitterness in them. You're lying, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I wanted her to be lying or telling the truth. She shrugged. Believe what you want. But remember this, Richard isn't who you think he is. He's worse. Much worse. I opened my mouth to demand more, but just then a guard shouted, and we were forced back into our lines. The moment slipped away again, leaving me drowning in more questions than answers. That night, I couldn't stop shaking. If she was telling the truth, then I wasn't just betrayed. I was part of a chain of women Richard had destroyed. And if she had helped frame me, then maybe she had proof. Maybe she had something that could save me. But how could I trust her? She admitted to helping him. She was as guilty as Richard. The next day, I decided to test her. During laundry duty, I found her again. If you really know the truth, I said quietly, prove it. Give me something. Show me. She looked at me for a long moment, then chuckled. You're braver than I thought. She leaned closer. Richard keeps everything. Records. Pictures. Messages. He never destroys anything. He's proud of his conquests. If you want to clear your name, you'll need those. Where are they? I asked desperately. She smirked. Not here. But I know where. And if you want my help, you'll have to give me something in return. I froze. What do you want? Her smile widened. Protection. From the others in here. If you can keep me safe, I'll give you what you need. I stared at her, torn. She was dangerous. Everyone warned me to stay away from her. But if she truly had proof of Richard's schemes, then she might be my only chance. Before I could answer, a loud crash echoed through the laundry room. 2 inmates had started fighting, and chaos erupted. Guards stormed in, pulling people apart. And in the confusion, I was shoved hard against the wall. My vision blurred, and I felt something warm trickling down my forehead. Blood. The guards dragged me out and threw me into solitary confinement for being involved. Alone in that tiny cell. With nothing but my own heartbeat for company, one thought clawed at my mind. Was she telling the truth? And if she was, could I risk trusting her? I pressed my back against the cold wall, holding my bleeding head, when suddenly, I heard it, a voice outside the small slit in my door. You'll never survive in here unless you make a deal, the scarred woman whispered. Think about it. I hold the key to Richard's secrets. Her footsteps faded away, leaving me trembling in the dark, trapped between fear and hope. The silence in solitary confinement was heavier than the prison walls themselves. No voices, no footsteps, no clanging doors, just silence, pressing on me until it felt like it could crush my bones. I sat on the hard floor, knees drawn to my chest, my head pounding from the cut I had sustained. My blood had dried into a rusty crust on my forehead, but it wasn't the wound that kept me awake. It was her words. You'll never survive in here unless you make a deal. I hold the key to Richard's secrets. I hated her for saying that. Hated her for dangling the possibility of truth in front of me like a carrot before a starving animal. But more than hate, I felt fear. Because deep down I knew she was right. The guard slid a tray through the metal slot, watery soup and a chunk of bread that smelled sour. I pushed it away. My appetite was gone. All I could think of was Richard. His smile, his lies, his betrayal. If what she said was true, if he had a collection of records, Proof of what he did to women like us. Then somewhere out there was my freedom. But the price was high. Protection. How could I, a prisoner with no strength, no allies, possibly protect anyone in this place? I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't dangerous. I was just me. Hours blurred into days. When I was finally released from solitary, the blinding light of the main prison block stabbed my eyes. The noise, the shouting, the smell of sweat and metal. It all felt louder, sharper, more threatening than before. And then I saw her again. The scarred woman leaned casually against the wall, her sharp eyes tracking me like a hawk. She didn't say a word, but her smirk was enough. A reminder of her offer. A reminder that she was waiting. That night in the cell, my bunkmate, a quiet girl named Hannah, finally spoke to me. She was young, barely 20, and always kept to herself. "You've caught her attention," she whispered, pulling her blanket tighter around her. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "The one with the scar. People call her Ruthless Ruth." The name sent a shiver down my spine. Why? Because she doesn't forgive. She doesn't forget. If she promises you something, she'll make it happen. Good or bad. People fear her, because she's unpredictable. But if she likes you, Hannah hesitated. If she likes you, she'll fight to the death for you. I lay there in the dark, staring at the cracked ceiling. Fear twisted in my gut, but so did hope. Maybe aligning with Ruth wasn't just about Richard's secrets. It was about survival. The next day, fate forced my hand. In the yard, a group of inmates cornered me. They were the same women who had shoved me during the laundry fight. Their leader, a tall woman with braided hair and cold eyes, sneered at me. "So you're the little secretary who thinks she's better than us, huh?" I swallowed hard. I don't want trouble. But trouble didn't care what I wanted. One of them shoved me and I stumbled to the ground. Laughter echoed around me as another one yanked my hair. "Please stop," I begged, but they weren't listening. Just when I thought the kicks and punches would never end, a shadow fell over us. "Ruth, back off," she growled. The women hesitated, their confidence wavering. "Stay out of this, Ruth," the leader spat. But Ruth only stepped closer, her scar catching the sunlight like a warning. "Touch her again and you'll regret it." Silence fell. Then with muttered curses, the women backed away. The yard slowly returned to its usual chaos, but I was left trembling on the ground. Ruth extended her hand. "Now you see why you need me." I stared at her hand, at the woman who had once betrayed me, who admitted to helping Richard frame me. She was dangerous, yes, but she had just saved me. And in that moment I realized the cruel truth. In prison, trust wasn't a luxury. It was survival. I took her hand. She pulled me to my feet and leaned close. "You protect me from the shadows, I'll protect you from the wolves. Together, we'll get out of here. And when we do, I'll show you Richard's secrets." My heart pounded. "How do I know you're not lying again?" Her eyes burned with something raw, something broken. "Because this time, betraying you won't help me. It's me and you against him now." From that day, an uneasy alliance was formed. Ruth became my shield, and I became her shadow. I made sure guards didn't notice when she slipped food to weaker inmates. I kept watch when she passed secret notes. In return, she kept the bullies away, her presence alone enough to silence them. But alliances in prison never stay secret for long. Whispers began to spread. People started watching us. Some out of fear, others out of curiosity. And then came the note. It was slipped under my pillow one night. A small piece of paper with shaky handwriting. "Do not trust Ruth. She will kill you before you ever see freedom." My blood ran cold. I sat on my bed, staring at the note, my mind spiraling. Who had written it? Why? Was it just another attempt to break me? Or was it the truth? The next morning, I caught Ruth watching me closely, her smirk gone, her eyes unreadable. For the first time, I wondered, had I just made a deal with the devil? That evening, as the prisoners lined up for count, I felt a sharp tug on my sleeve. I turned to see Hannah, her eyes wide with fear. She slipped something into my palm and whispered, "Don't let her see this." When I unfolded the tiny scrap of paper later in the cell, my heart nearly stopped. It was a photograph. A grainy picture of Richard. But he wasn't alone. He was with Ruth. His arm was around her waist, his lips pressed to her ear. And in the corner of the photo, a date was scrawled in pen. A date that proved they had been together long before I ever met him. My hands shook violently. Ruth hadn't just been another victim. She had been his lover. His partner. Maybe she still was. My chest tightened, my breathing shallow. The questions swarmed in my mind like angry bees. Was she truly on my side now? Or was this all another trap, another twisted game Richard was playing through her? And then I realized something even worse. If she had been close to Richard once, then maybe she still had a way to reach him. Maybe my entire alliance with her was nothing but a leash Richard had wrapped around my neck from the outside. I clutched the photo, my heart pounding like a drum. The walls of the prison suddenly felt smaller, the air thinner. And as I sat there, staring at Ruth across the room, I knew one thing for certain. I was in more danger than I ever imagined. The photograph burned in my hands as if it were alive, as if the truth itself wanted to scorch my skin. Richard and Ruth, standing together, his arm wrapped around her waist, his lips pressed to her ear. A date scribbled in the corner like a cruel stamp of proof. A date that was long before he ever looked at me. Long before he whispered promises into my ear. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a revelation. All this time, Ruth had spoken of herself as another victim, another woman destroyed by Richard's lies. But the photograph told a different story. She hadn't been some helpless bystander caught in his games. She had been his partner. My stomach twisted violently. I couldn't breathe. What if she still was? What if my so-called protector was only keeping me close so Richard could keep control of me? Even from behind the prison walls. I folded the photo quickly and shoved it under my mattress, just as Ruth's eyes flicked toward me from across the cell block. She was watching. Always watching. That night, I couldn't sleep. Hannah whispered from the bunk below me, her voice trembling. You saw the photo, didn't you? My throat felt tight. Where did you get it? She hesitated before answering. It was passed to me, from someone who said you needed to know the truth. I don't know who. I just did what I was told. Fear spread through me like ice. Someone out there was playing a dangerous game. Feeding me pieces of truth, or lies, that could shatter the fragile alliance I had with Ruth. Do you think she knows I have it? I whispered. I don't know, Hannah admitted. But you should be careful. Ruth doesn't forgive. The silence that followed was heavier than chains. The next morning, Ruth approached me in the yard. She moved with her usual confidence, her scar glinting in the light. You look tired, she said almost casually. I forced a weak smile. I didn't sleep well. Her eyes narrowed. Nightmares. I shrugged, avoiding her gaze. Something like that. She stepped closer, her voice dropping low. Don't keep secrets from me. Secrets are poison in this place. If you have something to say, say it. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to meet her eyes. I have nothing to say. She studied me for a long moment, then smirked. Good. Because we need to start planning. Planning for what? I asked. She leaned closer, her breath hot against my ear. For freedom. You don't want to spend 11 months rotting in here, do you? Richard won't wait that long. He'll cover his tracks. By the time you're out, you'll have no chance of proving your innocence. We need to move sooner. Her words sent chills down my spine. Sooner. But how? Escaping prison was impossible. Wasn't it? Over the next few days, Ruth began pulling me deeper into her world. She showed me how she controlled things inside. How she bartered with cigarettes and favors, how she had eyes in every corner of the prison. She wasn't just another inmate. She was a queen in her own dark kingdom. And I was her chosen ally. But the photograph never left my mind. Each time she whispered strategies to me. Each time she scared away bullies or saved me from trouble, I wondered. Was she truly helping me, or was she guiding me into another trap? One evening, while we scrubbed the cafeteria floors as punishment duty, I couldn't hold it in any longer. You knew Richard before me, I said quietly, my hands gripping the mop so tightly my knuckles turned white. Ruth's movements stilled. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to mine. Who told you that? I just know. I lied, my voice shaking. For a moment, I thought she would hit me, or scream, or deny it. But instead, she chuckled softly, shaking her head. Of course I knew him. I told you that already. I loved him once. But there's proof. I blurted before I could stop myself. A photograph. Her eyes snapped to mine like a blade. For the first time, I saw something dangerous flicker there. Not just anger, but fear. Who gave you that? She demanded, her voice low and sharp. I froze. I couldn't betray Hannah. I shook my head. It doesn't matter. Her hand shot out, gripping my wrist so hard it hurt. It matters. Because whoever gave it to you is trying to break us apart. And if you let them succeed, you'll die in here. Do you understand me? I yanked my hand back, my chest heaving. Why should I believe you? How do I know you're not still working for him? Her jaw clenched. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she leaned in, so close I could see every line of her scar. Because if I were still working for him, you'd already be dead. The words sank into me like stones. She released me and returned to mopping as if nothing had happened, but my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the mop. That night, Hannah whispered again. She knows, doesn't she? Yes, I admitted, my voice barely audible. You can't trust her, Hannah said urgently. If she was with Richard, then she'll always be tied to him. Maybe she's only keeping you alive until he decides what to do with you. I turned away, unable to answer, because deep down, I feared Hannah was right. Days passed, and the prison felt more dangerous than ever. Whispers followed me wherever I went. Some women looked at me with pity, others with curiosity, but most with suspicion. It was as if everyone knew I was caught in a storm bigger than I could control. Then one afternoon, the storm struck. A guard called my name. Williams. Visitor. My heart stopped. Who could possibly be visiting me? My family had disowned me after the trial, ashamed of the headlines. My friends had all vanished, not wanting to be associated with a criminal. The only people left in my life were inside these walls. I followed the guard to the visitation room, my legs trembling. And then I saw him. Richard. He was sitting there, calm, polished, as if the world hadn't burned my life to ashes. His suit was perfect, his smile still charming. Hello, darling, he said smoothly, as if we were lovers meeting for coffee instead of a prisoner and her betrayer across a glass wall. My blood boiled. I slammed my hands against the glass. Why are you here? He tilted his head, his smile never fading. To remind you of something important. You're alive because of me. And if you want to stay that way, you'll keep your mouth shut. I stared at him in disbelief. You framed me. You destroyed me. And now you want me to stay quiet. He leaned closer, his eyes cold. Because if you don't, you won't make it out of here alive. Accidents happen in prison, you know. And I have connections. My chest tightened. My vision blurred with rage and fear. And then just as suddenly as he came, the guard tapped my shoulder. Time's up. Richard smirked, stood, and straightened his jacket. See you soon, darling. As he walked away, my knees gave out. I slid to the floor, trembling. He wasn't just threatening me. He was reminding me. His power reached even into these walls. When I was dragged back to my cell, Ruth was waiting. One look at my face and she knew. He was here, wasn't he? She asked quietly. I couldn't speak. I could only nod, tears streaming down my cheeks. She stepped closer, her voice low but firm. Then we don't have a choice anymore. We have to act. If we don't, he'll kill you. Maybe he'll kill me too. The only way out is to fight back. Her words rattled in my head. Fight back. But how? Against a man like Richard? Against his power, his lies, his reach that extended even into this prison? I didn't know. But I knew one thing. He wasn't finished with me yet. And I wasn't finished with him. But before I could answer Ruth, the prison alarms blared, and guards rushed past our cell. Shouts echoed through the halls. Something was happening. Something big. One guard yelled, "Lockdown! Lockdown!" And then through the chaos, I heard it, a scream. A woman's scream. It was Hannah's. The scream sliced through the chaos like a knife, sharp and raw, echoing down the prison corridors. Hannah! I shouted, but my voice was drowned by the blaring sirens and the pounding boots of guards storming past. The prisoners were shoved back into their cells as the lockdown slammed into place. Metal doors clanged shut, one after another, until the entire block rattled like a cage. The screaming continued, desperate, terrified, then cut off so suddenly it was as if someone had ripped the sound straight out of the air. My blood turned to ice. I pressed my face against the bars, straining to see down the corridor. All I caught was a blur of guards dragging someone away. I caught a glimpse of her hair, Hannah's hair, before she disappeared around the corner. "What's happening?" I whispered, my throat dry. Ruth was beside me, her scar catching the dim light. She didn't look shocked. She looked calculating. "Someone sent a message," she murmured. "A message? What do you mean?" She finally turned to me, her eyes steady. "Richard's connections run deeper than you think. That girl, your little friend. Maybe she saw something she wasn't supposed to. Maybe she gave you something she wasn't meant to. Either way, he knows. And now she's paying the price." Her words punched me in the gut. The photo. Hannah had been the one to pass me the photo. Richard must have found out. My stomach knotted painfully, guilt crashing over me like a wave. Hannah was suffering because of me. I clenched the bars until my knuckles burned. I have to find her. I have to help her. Ruth's laugh was low and bitter. "This isn't the outside world, darling. You don't go rescuing people in here. You make choices. Choices that keep you alive." "But she's innocent," I whispered fiercely. "So were you," Ruth shot back. "And look where that got you." Her words stung, but they were true. Still, I couldn't just stand by while Hannah what? Was she being beaten? Killed? My imagination tortured me with possibilities. The lockdown stretched into hours. We were confined to our cells, no answers given, no explanations offered. The prison was always like this, secrets swallowed by steel bars. By nightfall, the sirens stopped, but the tension hung heavy in the air. When the doors finally clicked open the next morning, I searched desperately for Hannah. The cafeteria, the yard, the laundry room, she was nowhere. It was as if she had been erased. I sat at a table, untouched food in front of me, my chest aching with worry. Ruth slid onto the bench across from me. "Stop looking. She's gone." I looked up sharply. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" Ruth leaned in. "Sometimes, when people make the wrong enemies in here, they disappear. Maybe transferred. Maybe silenced. Either way, you won't see her again." Her words made my vision blur with tears. "This is my fault." Ruth's hand shot across the table, gripping mine hard. "No. This is Richard's fault. Everything that happens here, everything that happens to you, it all ties back to him. That's why I told you we have to fight back." I yanked my hand away, trembling. "How? How do we fight a man like him from inside a prison cell?" Her eyes narrowed. "By playing his game better than he does. He uses people. He destroys them. But he's not untouchable. Everyone leaves a trail, even him. And I know where his trail begins." I swallowed hard. "Where?" She leaned so close her breath brushed my cheek. "His safe house. Outside these walls. If we can get a message out, I can tell someone exactly where to look. The records, the photos, the files. They're all there. Enough to burn him down." My heart thudded. "Proof. Real proof. But doubt not at me. Why should I believe you?" Her expression hardened. "Because if you don't, Hannah won't be the last to disappear." Her words wrapped around my heart like chains. I wanted to scream, to run, to shake free of her and of Richard and of this nightmare. But I couldn't. I was trapped, and she was right. If Richard could reach Hannah, he could reach me too. That night, I lay on my bunk, staring at the ceiling, tears sliding silently into my hair. I thought of Hannah, her quiet voice, her timid smile, the way she had tried to warn me about Ruth. Now she was gone, maybe dead, because of me. I whispered into the darkness, as if she could hear me. "I'm sorry." The next morning brought more whispers. Prisoners murmured of blood in the showers, of a fight that never reached the guards, of a body dragged away before sunrise. No names, just whispers, and no one dared speak them too loudly. I felt sick. Later, during yard time, Ruth approached me again. "You look worse than usual," she said. "Don't," I snapped. "Don't pretend you care." She tilted her head, studying me. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about caring. This is about survival. You think Richard will stop at one girl? He won't. He'll keep cutting down anyone who stands beside you until you're all alone. And then he'll cut you down too. Her words made me shake with anger. And what about you? You worked with him. You framed me. How do I know you're not still on his side? For a long moment, Ruth was silent. Then she pulled something from her pocket. A tiny scrap of paper, crumpled and stained. She pressed it into my palm. When I unfolded it, my heart skipped. It was another photograph. This time it was Richard with someone else. Not me. Not Ruth. A woman I didn't know. And scrawled across the back were 3 words in Richard's handwriting. Do it quickly. I stared at it, my hands trembling. What does this mean? Ruth's eyes burned. It means you're not the only one. It means he's been doing this for years. Women, money, lies, he uses us then erases us. That note? That was his order. My order once upon a time. To destroy her the way I helped destroy you. My chest ached with a mixture of rage and horror. So you admit it, I whispered. Her jaw tightened. Yes, I admit it. I did terrible things for him. Because I loved him. Because I was weak. But not anymore. Now I want to burn him for every scar. Every lie, every betrayal. And if you want justice, you'll stand with me. I wanted to scream at her. To throw the photo back in her face. But deep down I knew she was my only link to the truth. Before I could respond, a sharp whistle pierced the air. Guards rushed into the yard, dragging an inmate between them. Blood streamed from her face. She kept shouting one name over and over, her voice ragged and desperate. Richard. 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 The guards beat her silent, but the name echoed in my skull like thunder. I grabbed Ruth's arm, my breath shaking. Did you hear that? Even in here, he's haunting us. We'll never be free. Her lips curved into a dangerous smile. Then maybe it's time we stop waiting for freedom to come to us. Maybe it's time we take it. The way she said it chilled me to my core. Because in her eyes, I saw more than anger. I saw a plan. And I had no idea if that plan would save me or kill me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Maybe it's time we take freedom. Ruth's eyes gleamed with something fierce, something dangerous. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. In her voice, there was no hesitation, no fear, only determination. I swallowed hard. What do you mean, take it? She leaned closer, her scarred face inches from mine. You think the system will save you? That the truth will magically appear, and Richard will confess? No. Men like him don't fall because of justice. They fall because someone pushes them off the edge. We push him. I stared at her, my mind racing. You're talking about escaping? That's impossible. Her smirk deepened. Impossible is just another word for unplanned. For days after that, Ruth whispered fragments of her plan. How the guards could be distracted. How certain inmates were loyal to her. How one small opening could lead us beyond these walls. I wanted to dismiss it all as madness, but every time I remembered Richard's smug smile, his threats, Hannah's scream, I realized she was right. Staying put meant death. And so, against every instinct screaming inside me, I agreed. But there was more. Ruth wasn't just planning an escape. She had a name, an address, a location. Richard's safe house. That's where the files are, she said, her voice low. Everything he's done. To me, to you, to others. With those records, we don't just run, we ruin him. The idea gave me strength. Proof. That was all I needed. Proof to clear my name. Proof to destroy the man who had framed me. Proof that Hannah hadn't suffered in vain. The night of the plan came quicker than I expected. The air in the prison was thick with tension. The alarms had blared twice that day. Fights in 2 different blocks. Both, I realized later, orchestrated by Ruth's loyal circle to stretch the guards thin. When darkness fell, Ruth and I slipped into the laundry block, our punishment duty. But tonight there was no punishment. Tonight the back door, normally locked, was ajar, its lock loosened days earlier by one of Ruth's allies. My heart pounded so loudly I feared it would give us away. Every shadow looked like a guard. Every creak of the floor sounded like an alarm. But somehow, impossibly, we made it through the service gate and into the night. For the first time in months, the sky stretched above me, endless and free. I wanted to collapse, to cry, to laugh, but Ruth yanked my arm. Not yet. We're not safe yet. We moved through the darkness, her steps confident, mine shaky. Hours seemed to pass before we reached the edge of the city. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Finally, Ruth stopped in front of a nondescript house. Plain walls, dark windows. A place you would never notice if you weren't looking for it. "This is it," she whispered. I stared at it, my breath catching. Richard's safe house. The place that might hold the proof of my innocence. Ruth picked the lock with practiced ease. My chest tightened. How many times had she done this before? The door creaked open and we slipped inside. The air smelled of dust and secrets. We searched quickly, our hands trembling as we pulled open drawers, rifled through papers, scanned bookshelves. Then, in a locked cabinet, we found it. Files, photos, hard drives, evidence. My hand shook as I flipped through the papers. Bank transfers, names of women, letters in Richard's handwriting, instructions, cold, calculated orders to ruin lives. And there, buried in the stack, was my name, my case, my forged signature, the false evidence that had put me behind bars. Tears blurred my vision. "It's all here. Everything." Ruth's voice was hoarse. "Now do you believe me?" I nodded, unable to speak. We packed what we could into a bag, desperation fueling our movements. But just as we turned to leave, the sound of a gun clicking froze us in place. "Going somewhere?" The voice sent every drop of blood in my body running cold. "Richard." He stood in the doorway, calm and collected, a gun in his hand. His smile was the same one that had once charmed me, the same one that had ruined me. "I knew you'd come here," he said smoothly. Ruth always was predictable. Ruth stiffened beside me, her jaw tight. "You set us up." Richard chuckled. "Of course I did. Did you really think you could outsmart me? You, Ruth, the bitter little traitor. And you?" His eyes locked on me. "My sweet, foolish secretary. Still dancing on the strings I pull." My hands clenched around the bag of files. "You won't get away with this. Not this time." His smile widened. "I already have. You see, no one will believe you. Not the police. Not the courts. You're both criminals now, escaped convicts. If anything happens to you tonight, it will only prove what the world already believes. That you deserve it." He raised the gun. My heart stopped. Then before I could think, Ruth lunged. She slammed into him, the gun clattering across the floor. They struggled, bodies crashing against furniture, grunts and curses filling the room. I scrambled, grabbing the gun. My hands shook so badly I could barely aim. "Stop!" I screamed. But neither of them stopped. Richard shoved Ruth hard against the wall, his hands tightening around her throat. Her face turned red, her eyes bulging. She gasped, clawing at his arms. Without thinking, I raised the gun. My finger hovered on the trigger, my mind screaming at me. If I pulled it, everything would change. If I didn't, Ruth would die, and then I would be next. Richard's eyes flicked to me, his smile still there, even as he strangled her. "Go ahead," he taunted. "Do it. Show me you're just as dirty as I am." My breath shook. My hand trembled. And then I pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening. Richard staggered back, shock flashing across his face. He fell to the ground, motionless. Silence swallowed the room. I dropped the gun, my whole body trembling. Ruth collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. You saved me," she croaked. I stared at Richard's lifeless body, tears streaming down my face. "No. I saved myself." We didn't waste time. We stuffed the files into the bag and ran into the night, our hearts pounding. This time, there was no turning back. Days later, the police raided Richard's safe house, tipped off by an anonymous call. The files were released. His crimes, fraud, manipulation, destruction of countless lives, were exposed. My name was cleared. The headlines shifted. From secretary imprisoned for fraud, to wrongfully convicted woman freed after uncovering billionaire's crimes. The world looked at me differently, some with pity, some with admiration. But none of it mattered. Because I knew the truth. I had been betrayed by desire. I had fallen for a man who destroyed me. But I had also survived. Ruth disappeared soon after. Some said she fled the country. Some said she was killed. I never saw her again. But I would never forget the scarred woman who had both betrayed me and saved me. As for me, I learned the hardest lesson of all. Desire is dangerous. It blinds you, lures you, makes you trust the wrong people. But betrayal, even betrayal that nearly destroys you, can also teach you to see clearly. And now I will never close my eyes again. Sparkle's life lesson. Sometimes the people who hurt us are the very ones we crave. Desire can lead to destruction when it blinds us to the truth. But strength comes from surviving betrayal and using the lessons it carves into us. Trust must be earned, and once broken, it should never be given blindly again. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more story.